The lattice rig is a way of globally modifying an entire model, and it can be used for quickly exploring alternative designs. So let's take our concept design scenario where we've started by bringing in sketches to the workspace. So we're looking to explore this as a shorter wheelbase version of our first design. So I'll start by using that first polygon model to quickly rough out the proportions. And I'll do that using the tool on the Object Edit palette called Lattice Rig. And this pops up its own palette of tools and starts by asking us to select the geometry. So I'll do that and then click Accept Targets. And this creates an outline control box or lattice, which I can now start to design by adding splits where I want to have control. And then clicking on Accept Split. So I'm not affecting the geometry yet, I'm just designing the control box. And you may need to experiment with this tool a few times to understand the best place to put the controls. So here I'm adding a split in the other direction. So when I'm happy with all those splits, I can click on Done. And then I click on Engage, which connects that control lattice I've just designed to the geometry. So I'll shade that up, and now we can start to globally modify the polygon model. First, I need to select the vertices I want to modify. And then I need to choose whether to translate or scale. And these ones I'll scale inwards to create a stronger angle for the sides. And I'm selecting here with my middle mouse button, which I've got set to replace. But you can do it by picking and unpicking with just the left mouse button. So then I'll switch to translating in the side view, and I'll roughly try to match the sketches. And I'm not trying to be accurate here, I'm just exploring a scenario by modifying the proportions of the rough polygon model. And lattice rigs work particularly well with polymodels as they stay connected as the shape gets changed. So when I'm finished, I can just do a pick nothing to deactivate the lattice and then view the results. Or I can use Query Edit to reactivate the construction history and go back in and change anything I want to. But I'll need to click Engage to reconnect that lattice to the geometry if I want to now start modifying it again. But let's say I'm happy with that, so no more changes. So then I hit Commit and the changes are fixed. If I wanted to undo all the modifications, then I'd just hit Revert. So what we end up with is a rough outline of a very differently proportioned car. It will be distorted, so the wheel arches, for example, will no longer be exactly circular. But it could be very useful as an underlay for our first surfaces that we want to build. And if you compare it to the original design, we've managed to globally explore changes in the design without having to worry about individual surfaces. The lattice rig works particularly well with polygons, but it also works with NURB surfaces too. But there are a couple of things to watch out for. First of all, it will break the construction history. And then it might have a few problems with multi-knots if you've got them, but this is just an exploration, so we can ignore those for now. And then it gives us these red vertices, which are indicating that the box is not containing all the geometry. And that's because it's reading the untrimmed versions of the surfaces. So I can fix this in two ways. For the windscreen, because this is on the center line and I don't want to distort that, then I really want the lattice box to be up against the center line. So I'm going to untrim these and then use Detach to actually reduce the surface size down to the center line. But for the side glass, I'll just adjust the size of the lattice rig to accommodate the full surface, just by selecting the vertices and moving them up until they return to a blue color. So I'm in the designing the lattice phase here. So this time I'll do a more subtle design exploration and just look at exploring what a shorter wheelbase might look like. So I'll just put 1 or 2 splits in. That's enough, so I'll just click on Done. Then if I click Engage to connect to the NURB surfaces, I can do a much more simple adjustment of the rear end and just bring that in to see how it might look on a shorter wheelbase. Now with NURBS surfaces, the modification will probably cause there to be slight breaks between the surfaces, which means that this technique isn't really suitable for production models, but it can be incredibly useful for quickly visualizing different design proposals.